We live in a world where we're constantly told to do more to get love, be more interesting, be more responsive, be more available, be more agreeable. But sometimes the biggest transformation doesn't come from doing more, it comes from doing something different. Often the smallest shift can create the most profound impact, especially in relationships. And one of the smallest, most underestimated shifts, changing a single word. Words aren't just fillers in a conversation. They shape perception. They influence how people view us, how they feel around us, and ultimately how they treat us. We think that a man falls for us when we show up, when we invest, when we prove ourselves. But what really makes someone fall? It's that subtle energy they feel when you speak with intention. It's the confidence that comes through when you use words that reflect self-respect. And that's why changing one word, even one, can completely alter your presence. Most people don't realize they're sabotaging themselves with their vocabulary. They use words that soften their power, reduce their clarity, or suggest uncertainty without even knowing it. They say things like, I guess, I don't know, maybe, whatever works for you, and worst of all, okay. These words are like cracks in your self-image. They tell the other person, I'll mold myself around you. And that might sound selfless, even kind, but in the dating world it's often interpreted as a lack of standards. When someone asks if you want to meet up and you reply with sure or okay, you might think you're being nice, agreeable, easygoing, but that word okay can make you invisible. It gives no emotion, no spark, no depth, doesn't show excitement, it doesn't reflect preference. And it doesn't offer anything of value. It's empty. It lacks identity. And that's not what people fall in love with. People fall for energy, for excitement, for clarity, for someone who has a voice and uses it. Think of a moment when you were truly captivated by someone. Was it because they agreed with everything you said? Or was it because they had a unique presence, an energy that pulled you in, made you want to understand more, dive deeper, stay longer? That's what confident language creates. And that confidence often begins with replacing one single, throwaway word with something real, something intentional, something that says, I know who I am, and I'm not afraid to show up as her. Imagine someone says, do you want to go to dinner tomorrow? And instead of saying okay, you say, that sounds great. I'd love to. What time were you thinking? Instantly, you've created a connection. You've shown enthusiasm. You've taken part in shaping the plan. You've signaled that your time and your presence are thoughtful, not automatic. The energy you're projecting is I'm here because I choose to be, not because I have nothing better to do, and that energy is irresistible. Let's go deeper. Why does one word matter so much? Because words are symbols of how you see yourself. When you keep saying okay, it becomes a habit, and that habit slowly conditions your identity. You stop standing for anything specific. You become agreeable for the sake of connection. But in the process you give away the very thing that makes someone want to connect with you in the first place, your uniqueness. We all want to be liked, that desire is human. But when being liked becomes more important than being real, we start saying things that don't reflect who we are. We don't say, I'd prefer something else, because we don't want to be rejected. We don't say, I'd rather meet earlier, because we don't want to seem demanding. So we say okay, even when it's not okay. We say, whatever you want, even when it's not what we want, and then we wonder why we feel unseen, unappreciated, even unloved. But changing that one word is where it begins. The word you choose tells the world whether you're showing up with intention or just along for the ride. When you replace okay with a real answer, you're giving people something to connect to. You're saying, this is how I feel, this is what I want, this is who I am. And when someone sees that, they don't just fall for your smile or your look or your charm. They fall for your presence. That presence is rare. It's easy to get into the habit of being low maintenance, especially if you've been told before that you're too much, too sensitive, too emotional. So you pull back, you dim your energy, you shrink your voice, you learn to play it safe. But safe doesn't create chemistry. It doesn't spark interest. It doesn't make someone think about you long after the conversation ends. What does? Owning your thoughts, speaking with certainty, choosing words that carry weight, that's what lingers. So yes, one word can change everything, because that word is a window into your self-perception. When you upgrade your words, you upgrade how people experience you, and when they start experiencing you as someone who knows her worth, someone who communicates clearly and confidently, someone who isn't just trying to please, but trying to connect, you become unforgettable. Not because you tried harder, but because you said something that mattered, something that had you in it. And it all started with changing just one word. There's a word so commonly used, so harmless on the surface, that we hardly ever notice how much damage it's doing. We say it to keep the peace. We say it to seem agreeable. We say it because we think it makes us more likable, more attractive, more easygoing. But the truth is, this one word, this seemingly innocent habit, is slowly making us invisible. That word is okay, it slips out so easily. He texts, "Hey, I've been swamped, can we move dinner to next week?" And you reply, "Okay." He says, "I'll let you know when I'm free," and you write back, "Okay." He shows up late, doesn't follow through, or gives you breadcrumbs of effort, and your go-to response, "Okay." But every time you say that word, you're not just being polite, you're shrinking a little, you're giving away a piece of your standard, you're silently agreeing to be treated as optional. And that is the most dangerous place to be when you're looking for love that lasts. Here's the thing most people don't realize: okay is not just a word, it's a posture, it's a statement, it's emotional energy, and that energy tells the other person something crucial about you. It says you can lead, and I'll just follow. It says you don't have to prioritize me, I'll still be here. It says I won't make any demands, I won't rock the boat, and I certainly won't ask for more. That's not low maintenance, that's low value. Now don't misunderstand, being agreeable isn't a flaw. Compromise is part of any healthy relationship, but when your agreeability comes at the cost of your voice, your preferences, your standards, you're not being agreeable anymore, you're being invisible. And invisibility never builds attraction, it never builds obsession, it doesn't inspire pursuit, it builds apathy. Apathy is when someone knows they can show up late, reschedule you last minute, go silent for days, and you'll still respond with okay. This is especially true in the early stages of a relationship. Those first few interactions are not just about getting to know each other, they're about setting the tone, and every time you say okay to something that doesn't align with how you want to be treated, you're teaching him how to treat you in the future. You're writing the script for the dynamic that follows, and when you make everything okay, you're telling him, there are no real consequences for treating me casually. That's not confidence, that's fear disguised as flexibility. Think about the version of you who's magnetic, confident, powerful. Does she respond to late-night texts with okay? Does she accept last-minute cancellations with no problem? Does she get breadcrumbed and still show up with enthusiasm? That version of you doesn't react, she chooses. She responds from clarity. She knows that every word she says either amplifies or erodes her value, and because she knows her worth, she's intentional with her language. Instead of saying okay, imagine saying something that reflects presence. Not anger, not drama, just clarity. When he cancels, you say, "I understand you're busy, let me know when you're genuinely available, we'll find a time that works for both of us." That one sentence shifts the entire energy. You're not punishing him, you're not desperate for a response, but you're also not just giving a free pass. You've signaled with elegance that you're not here to be rescheduled like a task. Your time has value, it's subtle, but that shift creates gravity. It makes him pause, think, feel. Because now he's dealing with someone who operates at a different frequency. You're not seeking validation from his attention. You're not clinging to the connection. You're anchored. That energy of grounded self-respect is what makes it's what makes someone replay the conversation in their mind. It's what makes them want to earn a spot in your life, rather than assume they already have it. This doesn't mean you need to become confrontational. It means you replace automatic responses with conscious ones. You tune into how something makes you feel, and respond from that awareness. When someone disrespects your time and you respond with okay, you're not being chill, you're being dismissive of your own feelings. And when you do that repeatedly, you disconnect from you lose touch with your own desires, and over time that erodes not just your relationships, but your self-worth. Let's go deeper. Where does this okay habit come from? Often it comes from fear. Fear of being too much, fear of losing someone, fear of being alone. So we think, if I don't make a fuss, if I just accept everything, maybe he'll stick around. But people don't stay because you tolerate everything. They stay because they feel something real. And there's nothing more real than someone who's not afraid to express what they need. Replacing okay with a thoughtful, grounded response isn't about being difficult. It's about being honest. It's about being a full participant in the connection, not just a passenger. When you replace okay with actually, I'd prefer we reschedule when it's less rushed, or let's find a time when we can both be present, you're communicating that you value the interaction and you value yourself enough not to settle for scrap. You'll be surprised how people step up when you stop saying okay, how their respect grows, how their curiosity deepens, how they start wondering what's behind your calm certainty. They feel drawn to it because most people are busy trying to avoid conflict instead of standing in their value, and in a world full of okays, the woman who speaks with quiet confidence becomes unforgettable. She's not playing games. She's not putting on a show. She simply refuses to shrink to fit into someone else's comfort zone, and that's the kind of energy people chase. Confidence isn't loud. It doesn't need to shout to prove or to beg for attention. True confidence lives in the subtle choices we make every day, especially in the way we speak. And one of the clearest indicators of that confidence is the language we use. Most people walk into conversations hoping to be liked, hoping not to offend, hoping to say the right thing that will keep the peace. But the people who leave the deepest impression aren't those who try to please everyone, they're the ones who speak with intention. When you speak with intention, everything changes. It's not about having rehearsed lines or sounding overly polished. It's about choosing your words from a place of clarity. You're not guessing at what someone wants to hear. You're expressing what's true for you. And when you do that, people feel it. They can tell they're not talking to someone who's trying to win their approval. They're talking to someone who already approves of themselves. That shift in energy is magnetic, because when someone feels that you're not searching for permission to be yourself, they relax around you, they trust you more, they lean in. Why? Because most of us are so conditioned to soften our truth that we forget how to simply say what we mean. We dilute our feelings with phrases like, I don't know, maybe, or whatever works for you. We default to safe words that don't reflect what we actually want, just so we don't appear too direct, too needy, too bold. But in doing that, we dim the very thing that makes us compelling, our presence. Intentional language isn't about being cold or distant, it's about being clear. Clarity creates connection. Think about someone who says, I'd love to see you Friday night, let me know if that works for you. There's no pressure in that statement, no game playing, no overthinking, just presence, just truth. That level of calm confidence sends a signal, I want this, but I don't need to force it. That's the balance that creates attraction, desire without desperation. On the other hand, imagine the same situation approached from uncertainty. Someone says, I mean, if you're free or whatever, I don't know. No pressure. Suddenly the energy is different. It's hesitant, unclear. It makes the other person feel like they're holding the responsibility for your emotional safety. And nobody falls for someone they feel responsible for emotionally. People fall when they feel inspired, and inspiration comes from strength, not insecurity. When you start paying attention to the words you use, you begin to notice how much power you are giving away. You begin to see how often you are seeking validation instead of simply expressing yourself. And here's the beautiful part. Once you start using intentional language, you start attracting people who respond to your truth, not just your availability. You stop being someone who gets selected for being easy to please and start being remembered for your depth, your direction, your presence. Speaking with intention is not about scripting your every word. It's about grounding your words in who you are. You stop saying things to avoid discomfort and start saying what aligns with your values. You stop using filler words to cushion your truth and start standing in it. That doesn't mean you'll always get the outcome you want, but you'll always get clarity, and that clarity will save you from chasing the wrong people, wasting time in vague situations, and living in emotional limbo. Let's say someone sends you a half-hearted message like, hey, we should hang out sometime. The unsure version of you might respond with, sure, just let me know. But the confident version of you, the one who's connected to her intention, might say, that sounds good, what did you have in mind? That small shift sends a very different signal. You're not just available, you're present. You're not here for vague offers, you're inviting something real. And people either step up to that invitation or they step out of your life. Either way, you win. Intentional language also protects your energy. Because when you speak from a grounded place, you attract interactions that match that energy. You filter out the people who want convenience and draw in the ones who respect clarity, the ones who don't want to play games, the ones who appreciate someone who knows what they want and isn't afraid to say it. You're not competing with noise anymore. You become the signal It's easy to think that speaking with confidence means being harsh or unyielding, but it's the opposite. True confidence makes room for vulnerability. You can say, "I really enjoyed our last conversation and I'd love to see you again," without needing a guarantee. That's not weakness, it's strength. Because it's honest. Because it's you showing up fully without hiding behind fear or pretend. That level of openness, when it's paired with inner security, creates chemistry that can't be faked. And it's not just about dating. This intentional way of speaking spills into every area of your life. You start saying no when something doesn't feel aligned. You start asking for what you deserve at work. You stop apologizing for existing. You stop lowering your energy to match spaces that don't value you. Because now you're not speaking from a place of doubt. You're speaking from identity. Words are powerful, and when you start using them to reflect your value rather than hide it, people take notice. You stop blending in. You start standing out, not because you're trying to, but because you've finally owned the truth of who you are. And you're not afraid to say it. There's a moment that happens in so many relationships where you know deep down that something doesn't feel right. Maybe it's a comment that stings, a plan that's cancelled again, or the way your gut twists when he says he's just not ready for something serious. But instead of speaking up, instead of pausing to acknowledge that discomfort, you push it down. You tell yourself it's not a big deal. You say it's okay, you stay quiet. And the reason? Because you're afraid of losing the connection, afraid of seeming too demanding, afraid that if you don't say yes, he might walk away. But here's the truth. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't feel right, every time you nod and smile when you really feel unseen or undervalued, you are abandoning yourself. Not for love, but for the illusion of it. And the cost is your own peace, your own power, your own presence. Because in trying not to lose him, you begin losing parts of yourself. Piece by piece, we've been taught that being low maintenance is attractive, that the way to keep someone is to be agreeable, flexible, and easygoing. And sure, nobody wants to be around someone who's constantly controlling or demanding, but there's a massive difference between being easy to get along with and being easy to walk over. And when you start accepting things just to avoid conflict or discomfort, you're not being kind, you're being silent in the face of your own unmet needs. The irony is, the very thing you think will keep someone close, your ability to say yes to everything, is often what makes you forgettable. When someone knows that you'll accept whatever they offer, they stop feeling the need to offer more. You've made it too easy. There's no tension, no edge, no sense that your time, your attention, your affection need to be earned or respected. And when something is always available, it loses its value, not because it isn't valuable, but because it's being treated like it's not. People fall in love with strength, not the aggressive kind, but the kind that comes from knowing who you are and what you're worth. That strength shows up in moments where you speak your truth gently but firmly, where you say, "That doesn't really work for me," or "I appreciate the offer, but I need more consistency." That strength doesn't push people away. It draws in the ones who are ready, the ones who want to meet you where you are, not where it's convenient for them. You can't build real connection on a foundation of compliance. You can't grow something meaningful if you're the only one bending to make it work. Love isn't about constantly accommodating another person, it's about being seen, being chosen, not just tolerated. And when you say yes to what doesn't feel right, you're sending the message that being chosen isn't really your priority. Being accepted is, even if it means accepting crumbs. It's uncomfortable to speak up. It's vulnerable to say no. But those moments are where your value is defined, not just to others but to yourself. You begin to realize that your voice matters, that your feelings aren't just valid, they're essential, and the people who genuinely want to be in your life will never be scared off by your truth. They'll be drawn to it, because it shows that you're not just trying to be chosen, you're choosing to. And that's powerful. That's the kind of energy that shifts everything. When you stop agreeing with what doesn't feel good, you open space for what does. You make room for respect, for admiration, for attraction that's based on who you really are, not the watered-down version of you that's been trying to hold everything together. You're not meant to be agreeable at the cost of your identity. You're not here to be someone's convenience. You're here to connect, to inspire, to be loved for your full presence, not just your patience. And when you finally stop saying yes to what doesn't feel right, you'll see that the right person won't be scared of your no. They'll be grateful for it, because it means your yes actually means something. Men don't chase availability, they chase value. They chase what feels rare, grounded, self-assured. When a woman knows her worth, it's not just something she says, it's something she lives. It's in the way she talks, the way she holds space for herself, the way she doesn't need to explain or prove her standards. And that kind of presence, it shifts the dynamic entirely, because now she's not standing in a place of waiting to be chosen. She's the one doing the choosing. When a woman carries herself with that quiet certainty, she becomes unforgettable, not because she's trying to be mysterious or playing hard to get, but because she's communicating a deeper message. I know who I am and I won't settle for anything that doesn't reflect that. That energy is rare, and it's that rarity that creates attraction. It makes someone want to earn her attention, not just assume it. You see, when you operate from a place of self-worth, men begin to experience you differently. They pay more attention. They think more carefully before canceling a plan, before sending a half-hearted message, before assuming you'll always be there no matter how they show up. Why? Because now there's weight to your presence. You've replaced "I'll take whatever I can get" energy with "I only entertain what aligns with my standards." That changes the entire game. It's not about being cold or indifferent. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about being fully present, but not for just anyone. Your time, your affection, your energy. These aren't things you give away freely. They are earned. And when a man senses that your life is full, that your joy doesn't depend on his actions, he starts asking himself what he needs to do to be part of it. That's when he leans in. That's when the chase begins. Not because you manipulated him, but because your energy is rooted in self-respect. So often we think we need to do more to keep someone interested, respond faster, agree more, give more. But what truly holds someone's attention isn't effort, it's who you are when you're no longer performing. It's how you carry yourself when you know that being single doesn't mean you're missing something. It means you're filtering. You're making space for the right match, not just anyone who shows up. The moment you start honoring your worth in your words, your choices and your boundaries, people can feel it. And men, especially, are drawn to that clarity. They know they can't take shortcuts, they can't coast, they have to bring something real to the table. When they do, it's not just attraction, it's commitment. Not because you chased them, but because you became someone who could never be ignored. When you change the way you speak, you change the way people experience you. Every word you use either reinforces your value or gives it away. And sometimes it's not about saying more, it's about saying less, but with intention, with clarity, with confidence. The shift from okay to conscious, grounded responses is not just a communication tactic, it's a reflection of who you believe yourself to be. When you stop chasing, stop pleasing, and start speaking from a place of quiet certainty, you stop being an option and start becoming a standard. The kind of woman who doesn't just attract attention but commands respect, ignites curiosity, and inspires lasting pursuit.